Sunlight filtered through the enormous courthouse windows and painted golden stripes on the cold marble floor, letting everyone feel the hush of an important day beginning. The downtown crowd shuffled to their seats, every shoe squeak echoing like a drum roll in a wide chamber. Reporters juggled cameras and notepads, eager to capture a moment that might fill the evening news and boost ratings. At the heart of the buzz stood Mateo Alvarez, a flashy young tech millionaire famous for turning bold dares into trending clips online. Mateo wore a plum-purple suit with silver buttons that caught the light every time he laughed at a whispered joke. He claimed money made life a game, and today he had chosen Judge Isabella Cruz as his newest opponent. Judge Cruz, the first Latina to lead this court, sat tall behind a bench, her calm brown eyes reading papers with measured focus. Stories said she balanced fairness and firmness like a tightrope walker, crossing a canyon on a windy day. She never chased spotlights, yet cameras still found her, because justice delivered clearly always earned attention. The bailiff announced that session would start in 5 minutes, sending ripples of silence across wooden benches. Families squeezed closer, children clutched programs, and elderly neighbors leaned forward to catch every word. Mateo's lawyer, Mr. Grant, stacked thick binders like armor in front of the defense table, confident no surprise could break his wall of pages. Across the aisle, the city attorney set down a single yellow folder, trusting careful notes over heavy piles of paper. A clock above the door ticked louder in everyone's ears, though its hands moved at the same steady pace as always. Rosa Morales, a sixth grader sitting with her mother in the gallery, stared at Judge Cruz and imagined her own future behind that bench. She admired how the judge looked small in height but giant in presence, like a candle that somehow lit an entire stadium. Mateo turned and flashed a confident grin toward the crowd, sure that every phone would capture his best angle. Cameras clicked like dozens of tiny woodpeckers tapping in unison, building a soundtrack of mechanical applause. Whispers passed about the challenge. Mateo had declared he could prove a legal loophole that even the judge had missed. If he won, he would keep $5 million he owed in overdue city fines. If he lost, he promised double to charity without complaint. Some people called the deal gutsy. Others called it a glossy mask hiding pure arrogance. Judge Cruz tapped her gavel once, a gentle knock that still sliced through the chatter and commanded instant quiet. She thanked everyone for arriving and reminded them that the court sought truth, not entertainment. The reminder floated over heads like a friendly warning from a lighthouse on a dark coast. Mateo smirked, seemingly unbothered, creating a contrast between glittering confidence and grounded authority. The clerk read the case title aloud, his steady voice spelling out long numbers that sounded less exciting than the drama promised. An official court sketch artist laid fresh paper on her board, pencils ready to freeze important faces in swift lines. A distant siren outside faded, as if the city itself hushed in respect for the coming debate. Spanish phrases fluttered softly in the gallery, whenever families from Mateo's old neighborhood shared quiet thoughts. Judge Cruz switched from English to Spanish for a brief greeting, ensuring everyone understood her welcome equally. That simple act earned nods of gratitude and widened the judge's circle of quiet supporters. Mateo rolled his eyes, confusing courtesy for showmanship, and tugged on his perfectly pressed cuffs. Two law students near the back whispered bets about how long the millionaire's grin would last. The bailiff signaled for all to rise, and wooden seats groaned as the full crowd stood like one tall wave. Judge Cruz nodded once, and everyone sat, settling like dust after a quick swirl of wind. Microphones on the bench clicked alive, ready to carry every word across speakers around the room. A digital screen behind a judge displayed the court seal, an eagle holding balanced scales under bright stars. Rosa stretched to glimpse the screen, letting its symbols burn into her memory as inspiration. The judge cleared her throat, smoothing the robe's sleeves that hid steady hands powered by years of careful study. With a calm that felt stronger than steel, she declared the proceedings officially open. Judge Cruz invited Mateo to explain the loophole he believed would free him from paying the fines, giving him the floor first as a gesture of fairness. Mateo stood, buttoned his shiny jacket, and spoke with the rhythm of a practiced salesman pitching a miracle gadget on morning television. He claimed the city code used outdated language that, in his view, let any citizen ignore penalties if they invested enough money in local jobs. Gasps rippled because many listeners had never heard such a wild interpretation come from anyone other than an internet comment section. Mr. Grant wheeled forward a cart holding charts, graphs, and colorful posters, turning the courtroom into something that looked like a school science fair. He pointed to bar graphs taller than a grown adult, bragging that Mateo's companies had hired hundreds, so the fines were, in his words, already paid in spirit. The judge listened without interrupting, her pen moving quietly as she took notes that would shape her next questions. Rosa tried to follow the math on the posters, frowning whenever numbers flashed faster than her eyes could track. Mateo's voice rose as he compared his contribution to a bridge, saying both served the public, even if one was built with steel and the other with payroll. The city attorney waited patiently, occasionally lifting an eyebrow when claims drifted too far from common sense. Several jurors scribbled quick reminders on their notepads, determined not to lose any detail in the flood of flashy evidence. Mateo concluded that charging him would discourage big thinkers, suggesting innovation needed room to bend rules now and then. Silence fell while he flashed another camera-ready grin, thinking the absence of complaints meant agreement. Judge Cruz thanked him politely, her voice smooth like a river that gently hides deep currents. She asked Mateo to clarify one sentence about payroll dates, and when he stumbled, her next question came faster. Soon she wove a chain of small inquiries that guided him into revealing his numbers were partly estimates based on future hiring promises, not actual positions filled. Reporters leaned forward, the scent of a headline suddenly stronger than the smell of fresh printer ink. Mateo insisted promises counted because investors trusted his forecasts, but his words now felt less shiny, more shaky. Judge Cruz then turned to the city attorney, inviting a response with a nod that signaled equal respect. The attorney spoke plainly, quoting the code section word for word, emphasizing verbs that Mateo had stretched like gum. He brought one slim folder that held certified payroll records, showing only half of the advertised jobs existed and even fewer belonged to city residents. The gallery murmured as facts replaced fireworks, and charts on the easel suddenly looked like decorations without weight. Judge Cruz asked Mateo whether he had reported those unfilled positions in his public filings, and he answered with a hesitant no that echoed longer than any yes could. The bailiff reminded everyone to stay silent, but excitement buzzed like a trapped bee fighting glass. A grandmother squeezed her handbag, whispering a prayer of thanks for honest officials. Mateo straightened his shoulders, refusing to show doubt, yet his grin now sat crooked, like a sticker peeling at one corner. Judge Cruz requested the next piece of evidence, keeping her tone calm, almost friendly, as if asking about someone's day. Mr. Grant produced a document claiming charitable pledges, but the judge pointed out it was signed only the night before and not yet funded. The millionaire's bravado dimmed, realizing quick acts done for show carried little weight under clear light. She quoted a proverb in Spanish, reminding that good deeds speak loudest when performed quietly and early. Rosa repeated the proverb softly, storing it as a lesson stronger than any classroom lecture. The judge explained that laws protected fairness, not fame, and bending words could break trust for everyone. She compared the code to a safety net that caught both rich and poor when wrong, making sure nobody fell farther than rules allowed. Mateo opened his mouth to argue, but his voice wavered like a flame running out of oil. Reporters noticed, scribbling that the man known for unstoppable confidence had met an equally unstoppable conscience. The attorney asked permission to call a city auditor, and Judge Cruz granted it, moving the hearing into deeper waters. Mateo's charts were folded and set aside, their bright colors now hidden like fireworks after the festival ended. The judge recessed for 10 minutes, allowing sides to prepare, though everyone knew the millionaire needed the pause most. People stretched legs, whispered theories, and lined up for water, careful to keep their voices respectful in the proud old hall. When the bailiff called them back, hearts beat faster, ready to witness what proved more powerful, money's shine or justice's steady light. The city auditor, Mrs. Patel, stepped forward wearing plain glasses and holding a thin laptop like a shield made of facts instead of metal. She spoke softly, yet each number she displayed hit the courtroom like steady hammer taps shaping iron. Her spreadsheet showed wages paid, taxes withheld, and positions vacant, all verified by timestamps and bank trails. Mateo's jaw tightened when red cells highlighted promises never kept, glowing like warning lights on a dark road. Judge Cruz allowed the millionaire to question the findings, offering him the same chance every citizen received. Mateo tried to spin delays as strategic pauses, but the auditor countered with bank receipts proving money sat untouched. Rosa admired how careful math could stand taller than any pile of shiny coins, proving knowledge held its own kind of wealth. A projector displayed timelines, and the judge asked simple yes or no questions, trimming away excuses like a gardener cuts dead branches. Mateo's earlier momentum shrank, and each admission chipped paint off his polished story. The city attorney next introduced 3 former employees who testified jobs were promised, then frozen the moment cameras left. One worker, a mother of 2, said she trained for weeks without contract papers ever arriving, her hope folding like paper in rain. The judge listened, nodding, but kept her focus on verified documents, ensuring feelings matched facts. During a brief pause, she addressed the gallery, reminding young listeners that honesty in small choices prevents storms in big ones. Rosa squeezed her notebook, writing that line down with bright green ink. Mateo requested permission to present a surprise witness, hoping a sudden turn could salvage pride. Mr. Grant called an economist who claimed the Millionaire's projects would triple city income within 5 years. Judge Cruz allowed the testimony but asked for proof beyond forecasts, and none appeared besides colorful graphs and hopeful adjectives. She reminded that tomorrow's promises cannot erase yesterday's debts, a principle simpler than any chart yet stronger than steel. Reporters, sensing the tide, began drafting leads about an unexpected lesson in humility. Cameras zoomed closer, capturing sweat along Mateo's hairline like tiny rivers of unease. The judge announced she would deliver a unique challenge rather than immediate ruling, surprising everyone. She proposed Mateo spend 1 full day shadowing city workers whose lives were directly affected by unpaid fines, then return with a plan to pay dues and serve. The millionaire blinked, unready for a sentence that asked for understanding before punishment. She offered him the choice: accept the immersive task or face immediate legal judgment based on presented evidence. Mateo glanced at Mr. Grant, whose silence confirmed how thin their defense had grown. Accepting the shadow day seemed the only path left that might preserve fragments of reputation. He nodded slowly, and the gallery exhaled, hearing a loud ego deflate in one quiet motion. Judge Cruz set strict rules. No cameras, no social media posts, only learning and reflection. She assigned a modest city van instead of Mateo's usual limo, reinforcing the spirit of the lesson. The judge scheduled a follow-up hearing for the next morning, leaving exactly 24 hours for the task. Rosa's mother whispered that sometimes the best punishment was a chance to see life through wider eyes. Outside, clouds gathered, matching the heavy mood of responsibility settling on Mateo's shoulders. The millionaire walked out surrounded by fewer reporters, their interest shifting from admiration to scrutiny. Judge Cruz closed the session with a gentle bang of the gavel, reminding everyone dignity mattered both in victory and defeat. School teachers later used the hearing as a civics lesson, sharing how law could carry compassion without surrendering strength. That evening, Rosa folded her notes and placed them under her pillow, hoping dreams would keep the wisdom fresh. Mateo sat alone in a quiet hotel room, reading schedules for the shadow day and wondering how early workers woke before sunrise. He realized money could buy time from others, but could not slow the spinning hands of a clock pointed at personal responsibility. On the courthouse steps, volunteers handed out pamphlets about civic duty, inspired by the judge's approach. And as streetlights flickered on, gossip melted into thoughtful discussion, signaling the first small victory of the judge's plan. Dawn painted pale peach colors over the skyline when Mateo met the city van outside a modest maintenance depot. His usual designer shoes felt out of place among steel-toed boots, reminding him that comfort often hides far from luxury. First stop was the recycling center, where workers sorted mountains of bottles that piled up because trucks missed runs funded by fine payments. A veteran employee named Luis guided Mateo, explaining how budget cuts left machines idle and human backs aching. Mateo lifted broken glass with thick gloves, the clink louder than applause he used to crave. He learned injuries rose when staff shrank, and each delayed paycheck meant another family stretched thin dinners. Next, the van rolled to a community library where unpaid bills froze book deliveries, leaving shelves half empty and after-school programs canceled. Librarian Mrs. Diaz showed him a wish list filled with STEM kits that could inspire kids like Rosa, if only funds flowed. Children pressed faces to the window, waving at a visitor dressed strangely fancy for dusty book bins. Mateo read donation plaques honoring small donors, realizing how his much larger pledge had never left the vault. He swallowed pride when Diaz handed him a mop, asking him to help clean a leak that stained a reading corner ceiling. The millionaire's reflection in the spill looked warped, as though water itself questioned his true value. During lunch break, workers shared sandwiches while sitting on overturned crates, offering Mateo a spot without judgment. He tasted plain cheese and bread, finding surprising warmth in its simplicity. The afternoon shifted to road repair, where potholes broke tires daily on a busy school route. Crew Chief Jada explained a repair schedule shortened after city revenue fell, forcing teams to choose which holes to fill and which to leave another week. Mateo shoveled hot asphalt under a sun that ignored his expensive sunscreen, arms aching in minutes. Passing drivers honked in support, some recognizing him but choosing thumbs up over selfies to honor no camera rules. Sweat blurred his vision, yet he saw clearly the connection between unpaid fines and jagged roads children crossed. As dusk approached, the van stopped at a shelter where power bills teetered on edge because funds earmarked from fines never landed. Volunteers cooked stew in giant pots, stretching ingredients like magicians stretch scarves. A team boy thanked Mateo for serving bowls, not knowing the server once argued he owed nothing. That thank you felt heavier than awards lining the Millionaire's office walls. Shelter director Ms. Jordan showed charts of monthly costs and pointed to gaps exactly matching the amount Mateo disputed. He wrote figures in a notebook, fearing memory alone might let shame fade later. The final visit was a night shift to the hospital ER where broken streetlights, unfixed due to short funds, increased bicycle crashes. A nurse guided him through triage, explaining each case that might have been avoided if city services worked fully. Mateo held an ice pack to a child's bruised knee, listening to the small voice thank him for being kind. Midnight found him exhausted on a plastic chair, mind buzzing with images of strained smiles and tired eyes. He realized his shadow day was not punishment. It was a mirror big enough to show consequences once hidden behind wealth. On the ride back, the driver played soft music, leaving Mateo alone with thoughts louder than drums. He drafted an action list, pay full fines plus interest, fund the library wish list, and end unpaid internships at his firms. For the first time, the billionaire felt lighter by deciding to part with money, not earn it. The van parked at the courthouse just before sunrise, horizon glowing like promise after a long lesson. Mateo thanked every worker, stumbling over words because sincerity was still new furniture in his mouth. They accepted his gratitude with polite smiles, caring more about tomorrow's resources than fancy apologies. He walked up the courthouse steps alone, each footfall echoing responsibility rather than swagger. High above the entrance, the same flag fluttered, but today it seemed to wave encouragement instead of indifference. Inside, he paused in front of a mural showing citizens of every background building the city together. He touched the painted bricks softly, vowing to join their work with real bricks funded by earned understanding. Court reconvened with brighter energy, as if the early sun had poured extra light through the tall windows. Mateo entered wearing a simple navy suit, leaving behind glitter, and instead carrying a thick folder labeled action plan. Reporters raised eyebrows, noticing the absence of his usual entourage and the presence of humble determination. Rosa leaned forward, eager to see whether reflections turned into real change overnight. Judge Cruz greeted everyone and asked Mateo to share what he learned during the shadow day. The millionaire cleared his throat and spoke in a steady voice, free of boastful echoes. He described each location, naming workers and explaining how unpaid fines carve holes not only in roads but also in hope. The gallery listened, surprised to hear genuine respect weave through his account like bright thread repairing torn fabric. He pledged immediate payment of all fines with added interest and submitted bank transfer receipts, already completed at dawn. Gasps of approval rustled the air, sounding like gentle wind through new leaves. Next, he offered an equal amount to restore the stalled library programs, road repairs, shelter bills, and broken streetlights. The city attorney verified transfers in real time, nodding while numbers refreshed on his tablet. Mateo admitted his earlier arrogance and apologized to the court, stating that justice had shown him a wider map of his city. Judge Cruz watched carefully, measuring truth by actions more than words. She asked why the donations were unconditional, and he answered that good deeds lose shine if tied to loopholes. The judge's gaze softened, yet she remained firm, reminding that one day of learning does not erase years of neglect. She therefore ordered a year of quarterly public reports detailing his community investments, ensuring accountability sustained beyond headlines. Mateo accepted without protest, acknowledging that trust grows in seasons, not seconds. Mr. Grant quietly closed and used binders, realizing thick books were no match for lived experience. Judge Cruz commended city workers who guided the shadow day, highlighting their patience and essential service. She encouraged students present to volunteer in local programs, planting seeds of civic pride early. Rosa beamed, already planning a school project about how laws protect fairness when applied with heart. Reporters asked for sound bites, but the judge limited interviews to prevent turning the event into a circus. Instead, she released a concise statement celebrating collaboration between wealth and wisdom for public good. The clerk recorded docket notes marking the case resolved with full compliance and extended restitution. Applause broke out, gentle at first, then rolling like soft thunder before the judge raised her hand for calm. She reminded the room that justice served as a shared victory, not a personal trophy. Mateo thanked the judge in Spanish, honoring her heritage and the diverse roots of the city. She replied in the same language, wishing him guidance as he rebuilt trust brick by brick. Cameras captured the exchange, translating respect beyond subtitles. Some skeptics remained, and Judge Cruz addressed them, saying true change proves itself over time and welcomes honest scrutiny. She ordered the transcripts sent to local schools as a teaching resource on civic responsibility. Rosa imagined reading those pages aloud to her class, voice steady with pride. The judge closed the hearing with 2 taps of the gavel, lighter than before, signaling problems repaired without cracking anyone's dignity. Outside, Mateo held a brief press chat, promising to match donations any time fines rose in the future, turning potential punishment into predictable help. Volunteers from the shelter stood beside him, now partners instead of pawns. Social media flooded with balanced stories, some praising the judge, others lauding the millionaire's growth, but all underlining the power of accountable leadership. City stocks in Mateo's companies dipped slightly, then steadied as investors valued integrity's long game. That evening, streetlights on the once dark avenue flickered back to life, guiding families home under safer glow. And somewhere in her small bedroom, Rosa began drafting a letter to Judge Cruz, thanking her for showing that fairness can both teach and heal. Weeks passed, and the story of the millionaire and the Latina judge traveled far beyond city limits, spreading through classrooms, news feeds, and dinner table talks. Teachers designed lessons asking students to trace choices and consequences, turning a headline into a living diagram of ethics. Mateo followed through on quarterly reports, publishing clear spreadsheets that even 6th graders could read without confusion. He invited library kids to tour his tech labs, offering internships that paid fair wages, ending the era of unpaid promises. Judge Cruz quietly inspected progress, always unannounced, ensuring change remained genuine and not staged. Road crews received fresh equipment funded by the donations, cutting pothole repair times in half and lowering accident rates. The shelter expanded its kitchen, adding healthy options and culinary classes that opened new job paths for guests. Streetlights along the school route glowed steadily, their warm circles acting like nightly guardians over young travelers. City budget meetings showcased graphs with sharp improvements, each bar labeled Restoration Fund powered by accountability. Rosa attended one session, presenting a short speech on civic duty that earned applause and a scholarship offer. She thanked Judge Cruz in person, receiving a small pocket copy of the city charter as a gift and challenge to protect it. Mateo launched a program called Shadows to Solutions, pairing executives with city workers for immersive empathy days. Other entrepreneurs signed on, learning that true prestige blossoms from shared uplift, not solitary towers. Local news dubbed the sequence the Cruz Effect, celebrating leadership that blends rule of law with compassionate creativity. National outlets asked for interviews, but the judge declined, saying real heroes were the residents who kept improving their blocks. A mural appeared near the courthouse showing diverse citizens holding a giant key that unlocked balance scales. Artists painted Mateo and Judge Cruz smaller than the crowd, reminding viewers that community outweighs individual fame. Tourists snapped photos, and guides explained how one courtroom lesson turned pride into progress. School debate teams practiced with case files from the hearing, honing reason without crushing respect. University law classes analyzed Judge Cruz's decision as a modern model of restorative justice. Mateo began volunteering weekends at the library, reading stories to kids about explorers who admitted mistakes then made amends. He noticed laughter rang louder when readers shared humility alongside adventure. The City Council created an annual Courage and Correction Award, giving the first one jointly to the judge and the millionaire. Acceptance speeches were limited to 2 minutes each, showing action still mattered more than talk. Neighboring towns adapted similar fine repayment programs, proving good ideas replicate faster than viral videos when rooted in sincerity. Rosa's letter finally reached the judge, who framed it and placed it beside her law degree as a reminder of future guardians in training. She wrote back encouraging the girl to practice clear writing and brave speaking, tools as mighty as any gavel. On the anniversary of the case, church bells rang and buses displayed banners reading "Fairness Builds Futures." Children marched in a small parade holding cardboard scales painted gold, cheering for justice they could see on their own streets. Mr. Grant opened a seminar on ethical representation, admitting the trial reshaped how he served clients. Mrs. Patel, the auditor, published an essay titled "Numbers Never Lie When We Listen," inspiring math clubs everywhere. The former employees hired late finally received full positions, health care, and scholarships for night classes. Library shelves filled with new books, and Rosa found one about tightrope walkers, smiling at the hidden tribute to the judge's balance. The shelter ran a community garden, its first tomato harvest delivered to the courthouse cafe as a thank you lunch. Street musicians wrote a ballad about courage meeting consequence, and crowds sang along on warm Friday evenings. Tour bus guides ended their stories by challenging visitors to imagine what fairness could fix in their own hometowns. As seasons rotated, the city's bond rating climbed, proving that moral gains can lead to financial ones when managed wisely. Judge Cruz mentored new judges, teaching that listening with empathy never weakens the law, it muscles its reach. Mateo set an alert on his phone to remind him daily of the shadow day, ensuring past mistakes stayed visible like a guardrail on his road forward. And every time the courthouse doors swung open, sunlight still painted golden stripes on the floor, but now they looked less like spotlights on the powerful and more like welcoming paths for anyone seeking honest justice. On the case's second anniversary, sunrise revealed a city buzzing with pride, streets repaired, libraries lively, and streetlights gleaming like guardians guiding buses and early commuters. In front of the courthouse, volunteers lined tables with notebooks, rulers, and bright crayons from the Millionaire's Fund, each stamped with a motto: learn, grow, give. Judge Isabella Cruz arrived early, robe over a bright teal blouse sewn by her mother, proving heritage and progress can walk together without stumbling. Mateo Alvarez arrived next, dressed plainly, carrying robotics kits for the 6th grade science club because he learned curiosity multiplies faster than profit. Reporters stood behind a cordoned line, knowing attention is a privilege earned by patience, not a right grabbed by shouting questions. Rosa Morales, now in 8th grade and on student council, held a clipboard of surveys asking kids what to improve next, proving young voices were finally central. Mrs. Patel, the auditor, greeted Rosa with a high five, celebrating the launch of an online dashboard that turns plain budgets into colorful charts anyone can explore like comic pages. A marching band warmed up, brass notes blending with the scent of fresh churros donated by a bakery that once teetered during the pothole crisis. The mayor praised the Cruz effect as the moment laws began guiding people the way lane lines helped drivers steer instead of slowing them down. He unveiled a civic app coded by graduates of Mateo's paid internships, letting citizens report broken lights, track repairs, and send digital applause to workers. Judge Cruz spoke briefly, reminding everyone that fairness is a muscle-needing daily exercise, not a medal polished only on parade day. She invited businesses to host their own shadow days and students to verify promises, making transparency feel as normal as checking the weather. Mateo confessed he still sets a daily phone reminder of his shadow day, a chime that refocuses him on accountability before ambition. He announced a scholarship named after Luis, the recycling veteran, funding trade school tuition because society needs skilled hands as much as sleek code. Luis, surprised, said glass bottles had led to golden chances, proving hope recycles when people pay attention. Mrs. Diaz from the library presented a giant bookmark made by children, thanking Mateo for the robotics kits and noting books still launch more dreams than rockets. A drone filmed overhead but streamed ad-free, honoring the judge's rule that public good is not clickbait currency. Road repair crews paused to watch the live stream on tablets bought with fine money, feeling seen and valued while asphalt hissed in summer heat. Shelter director Ms. Jordan announced kitchen graduates had opened a cooperative cafe, proof empathy serve hot can power whole neighborhoods. The Economist, who once backed Mateo, published data on compassion return on investment, showing kindness boosts economies as surely as capital. Students displayed posters linking fines paid to safer streets and lower hospital costs, visualizing cause and effect for all ages. Judge Cruz taped the posters along marble halls, turning corridors into a bright timeline of civic revival. Bus drivers looped the plaza, honking gently to celebrate smoother routes that save fuel, time, and tempers. Rosa launched a mentorship portal pairing judges with aspiring lawyers from every background, so future benches mirror their communities. Mateo funded it but required quarterly student audits, embracing oversight as a safety belt, not a speed bump. The mayor honored sanitation crews finally paid overtime, reminding leaders that success tastes sweetest when shared. Biodegradable confetti burst as the high school band's finale echoed down refreshed streets. News outlets worldwide led with collective steps, proving audiences crave substance over spectacle when given the choice. Teachers streamed the event, asking classes to list local problems solvable through similar teamwork. Companies elsewhere requested blueprints for Shadows to Solutions Days, showing good ideas fly farther than airplanes when powered by sincerity. Judge Cruz sealed a time capsule under the courthouse oak, filled with pledges, letters, and a broken asphalt chunk as a warning souvenir. She set it to open in 20 years, challenging future citizens to measure promises against reality. Rosa vowed to stand under that oak as an adult and report honestly, even if heroes falter. Workers dismantled stages but left conversation booths open, proving dialogue outlives loudspeakers. Families picnicked on the lawn, children balancing on curb edges like living symbols of justice scales. Mr. Grant hosted a workshop on ethical negotiation nearby, teaching that strong cases sprout from truthful seeds. Real-time dashboards of festival expenses versus donations turned transparency into a cheerful carnival game. Sunset-lit streetlights that now served as quiet percussion for the city's renewed rhythm. Mateo walked home, greeting neighbors who once knew only his logo, feeling human first and entrepreneur second. Judge Cruz stayed last, picking up stray litter, whispering a promise to guard the key of fairness, while golden evening stripes guided tomorrow's footsteps toward the next challenge.